we're going to talk about God and money because there are so many people who believe that God do not help them with their finances. And I'm here to tell you that is not the truth. One day it occurred to me that God literally gave me a plan that I did not follow. And then it spiraled into more thoughts of, oh my gosh, God has been telling me how to spend money this entire time. Now, the first time that God gave me this plan, which was tied to my 401k. So, about a couple years ago, I remember it was November 11th, and because I remember 1/11/11, I won't ever forget that day. God literally told me how to put money into my 401k plan to max it out, which means that I will put about $22 to $23,000 in our 401k plan, and that's just for one plan. And I did not do it. And about, let's just say, 4 months later, it dawned on me, oh my gosh, God told me the legit, God told me how to max out my 401k plan by giving me the details of how to do it every time I got paid. And I did not listen initially. And then one day I was sitting down just reviewing where we are, our net worth, which is something I pray that you understand. I'm gonna pause for a moment. Your net worth. Your net worth is how much you have in terms of your assets and your liability. So everything that you own that has a value minus anything that you owe. So let's just say the asset of your house, which is a little iffy because technically you don't get the money until you sell it, but let's just use the house for example. So let's just say your house is worth $500,000, but you only have $250,000 on your mortgage. Then your net worth of that home is $250,000 because the other amount of the money is owed to the bank and you're not free and clear of that money. But you will only be able to walk away with that money if you sold the home for that $500,000. So you will add up your home, your cars, anything that has a value to it that you own outright minus anything that you owe, credit card loans, 401k loans, student loans, whatever that case is. And when you add that all up, whatever number is there, that is your net worth. Okay. So I remember doing it maybe about, let's see where we at, back in 2009 when we were like in debt and our net worth was like negative. It ain't that right now, baby. But I'm just saying, like, I just remember thinking, like, oh my gosh, I didn't know that you could have a negative net worth because that was around the time where the market went down and the homes were less valued at what you paid for. So we were in the negative, okay? And we didn't have as much money as we have in our 401k and so forth. So anyway, I wanted to pause because a lot of people don't know what it means to have a net worth. And then also you want to include anything that you have in investments outside of your 401k, like your stocks and, whatever trades you're doing. Your HSA, you can have money there because that money's yours after your medical bills. Like I can go through a whole video on like your assets and your liabilities. But I just want to pause just to kind of just speak to someone who never heard the term net worth so you can understand to go ahead and calculate everything that you owe and everything that you own and assess where do you stand. And then I want you to write down how much you want to be worth. Okay, write it down. I want to be worth $3.2 million. I'm worth $32 million. Whatever that looks like, write it down. Okay, so back to what I was saying. So God tells us what to do with our money. And God does so in a very easy manner, meaning like God will give you step by step. So one day I was, again, like I said, going through our net worth. And as I got further along in the journey of like recognizing like God helping me, it occurred to me that God was literally telling me to cut off my credit cards, which I did. I cut off my credit cards in 2016, 2018, but then I got back my credit cards. But I realized that God didn't want me to have credit cards. So I actually don't have, I have like one credit card now, maybe two. And I wasn't really using most of them that I shredded anyway. But my point is that I got rid of the credit cards. So if you know that God has been helping you with your finances and you're so scared to get rid of your cards, just go ahead and shred it because God is saving you from yourself because you don't need it. God is transitioning you to become someone who pays things in cash so you don't have to worry about paying back interest because I want you all again to look at your credit card statement and look and see how much you're paying in interest. Where is your APR? Credit cards now are charging like 25, 30% in your interest rates, which means that you're paying almost half of what that shirt would have cost you. Okay, because 30% on anything you spend is not a little bit of money, it's a lot of money, especially if you add that up every month. Okay, so if you can tell, this is our financial spiel on God helps us with our financial life. So I'm really saying this to say that I was talking to someone earlier today, and they were telling me about like their salary and what God told them to do, and it didn't make sense to them. But as they kept on moving forward with the plan, even though it didn't make sense, that they were able to see what God was doing and that it made sense now. So there are times where God may tell you how to utilize your income, how to divvy out your paycheck, and it may not make sense to you because you might think like, I'm not going to have anything. This seems like I'm lowballing myself. Oh my gosh, how am I going to survive? But I can guarantee you, if God told it to you, that means that there is something bigger that you're not seeing because God knows the future. And that means that you are on a path of prosperity because that's what God has promised us. And if you deviate from what God is telling you, therefore, you won't be able to see what it is that God has for you in that moment in time. That doesn't mean that God wouldn't, change your trajectory later on. But what I'm saying is that God is teaching you discipline. So if God is saying to you for you to cut up your credit cards or to no longer put anything on your credit card or not to take out any loans, that's because God is teaching you discipline. God is teaching you how to move away from instant gratification to be able to wait for what it is that you want. Now, instant gratification has become a thing of the future. It's been around for a time, but there's this instant environment that has been created where we want things right now. And we've moved away from, actually, I take that back. I was going to say we moved away from patience, but I was reminded about the Israelites. The Israelites were not patient, which is why they wandered the wilderness for 40 years. Okay. So patience is a virtue that God wants us to be able to master. Long suffering. We are promised long suffering. In the long suffering, there is a correlation to how God wants us to learn how to depend on Him, have faith, and just to know that it will happen. But even in the midst of that, there is God teaching you how to become a good steward. So understand, if God has been giving you instructions on your finances, it is because God is teaching you how to become a good steward over the things that you have. Now, it doesn't just mean finances. God may also be teaching you how to, and I shouldn't say may, God, I definitely should say may. God is teaching you, and you just may not realize it, or you're just not connecting the dots on how to be a good steward even over your home. So when it comes to organizing your home, keeping it clean, you know, don't wait for you to get the home that you want for that to be what you take care of. No, what are you taking care of in the now? And that correlates to the finances. God is teaching you discipline on the more. So if you're asking God for more, and God is a God of abundance, God is a God of riches, God is a God of wealth. God doesn't, need anything material, right? We are the ones who tend to want material things. And this is not a prosperity gospel at all, but this is just helping you to understand that God helps us in all areas. Right now, I could be talking about our health and eating and consuming good things and drinking water and eating fruits. There are just different segments of our lives that I speak to, and finance is one of them. As a wealth sharer, it's not just sharing wealth about finances. I share wealth about our mindset and how to get to understand the wisdom of God. So when you understand that there is more that God is allowing you to experience before you get to the millions or the half a million or the billions, whatever that looks like, whatever number it is that you desire, and God is helping you get to that number and beyond, because God will also give us more than we expect. There is a discipline that God is teaching you in the midst of it all. And oftentimes we ignore the fact that there's a discipline that comes with it. There's faith that comes with it. There's perseverance. There's steadfastness. Like, there are so many lessons that God is teaching us that we tend to overlook. And I'm admit, it took me a good old minute for me to put it all together. Like, the knowledge I have is not knowledge that I've had for 10, 20 years. No, some of this knowledge is like a year, 2 years, 5 years, 6 months, 2 weeks, one day. Like, there's things that I go through, and as I'm being obedient in my walk and as I'm being faithful and learning to trust God, that God is revealing to me. But I must say, when I look back at the fact that God was telling me certain things about money management that I totally was overlooking, and not to say that I wasn't managing money well at all, I could have been doing a whole lot better. Okay. Meaning, and it's not a comparison, because that's where people get lost. Like, oh, I could have been so much further along. I accept the lessons for what they are, because I know that wealth is mine. I know that I'm wealthy. That I know. There's no question about that. It's not about, you know, you making yourself feel bad about what you didn't do. That's not what this video is about. It's for you recognizing that God does help you understand how to move through your money. Or if you're not on the frequency of hearing God, where you know God is telling you how to do things, God will also put people in your life to teach you. Or you might need to pay for a course, or you might need to do some research and read a book. Like, there's going to be resources available to you, or you could just read the Bible too. There's scriptures in the Bible that tells you about, talents and not wasting talents and being able to save and invest. So I just want to encourage someone out there who is struggling with their money. They're struggling. I want to say that God is helping you put a system in place. I'm going to do my best to give you the information and resources that you need, so, and the not the education, so you can understand the correlation to the fact that God is helping you. And God is helping you through this video right now. Like, God told me to sit down and create this video so I can educate someone on what it is to understand that there are certain details about our financial life that God has given us specific instructions on that we may not be keen to, and we may not be following through on. So, wherever you live in that spectrum, I need you to understand that if you had this inkling to do better with your money, and it was something that was heavily impressed on your spirit, and you just knew that you were supposed to, cut that credit card or stop, the overspending, you were to do something different with your money, maybe look for another job, um, seek that promotion, DoorDash, whatever that looks like in your space and time, just know that God is giving you the resources, the guidance, and the wisdom that you need to be able to do better. And I want you to do better, because I can tell you, on the other side, there is peace that comes with knowing that God guides us, not just in relationships and finances and health, but in every area of our life. And I want you to be able to be on the path that God has for you, so you can be able to manifest the greatness of life and be able to be in alignment of where God wants you to be. Because there is a plan over your life that I know that God has for you, because it is written that it is predestined. Thing is, people don't take it serious enough. So I'm doing my best to encourage someone to know that God has a plan for you. And God's plan is to prosper you, not to harm you. And to prosper you means that God is just not going to drop, millions of dollars on your lap. That's not how it works. How it works is that you need to do your part. You need to follow through. You need to have good practices and good systems in place and be a good steward and show God that you can handle what it is that you have today. Okay?